podcast. I am Cheryl Ameling, the certification coordinator.
I'm Leona Wolf, the administrator.
And I'm Megan Busk, the head of marketing.
And today we are going to talk about tips for dads and partners. So I think I love talking about this. I think that a lot of times, like, partners really don't know how they fit into the birth process. Kind of like you can't have the baby for her, and you can't take the pain away. So what do you do, right? It can feel kind of like a helpless bystander. Like, I'm just gonna sit over here and you do your thing over there because I don't really know how to help. So today we're going to talk about like ways that you can actually be supportive, ways that you can actually be helpful. And I want to break it down like pregnancy, birth, and then postpartum. So let's kind of jump in. What are some tips that you guys have, or things that you tell your clients, ways that they can be helpful during pregnancy?
That's a good question. I'd probably say one of the big things is just being there for her and getting her anything she needs. That's one thing that's helped me in my own pregnancies. I'm like, I just don't want to move. Like, you get to the point in your pregnancy where you're like, I just want someone to do something for me because I'm dealing with all this other stuff. And I just want like a glass of water that I don't have to get myself.
Right. I'm growing eyeballs. You get me the water, please.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, and I think of just in general, like, have a little empathy for the fact that I'm growing a human. And I mean, I remember my very first OB saying the amount of energy that you're expending, this is even in the first trimester, the amount of energy your body is expending is about the equivalent of running a marathon every single day.
Wow.
And that really put into perspective for me, myself, oh, it's okay that I feel exhausted.
Yeah.
Even when this baby is still, this tiny and doesn't look like a baby yet. And I'm definitely don't look pregnant yet, but it like validated my exhaustion. And for my husband to hear that is like, oh, okay. Like, he really understood a little bit better how much work was happening, even though it didn't look like I was doing work.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. You take all those afternoon naps, and it's nice to know that like, it's okay.
Yeah.
You've done a lot today already.
Yeah. Like, there's a reason I've beached myself on the couch at 4:30 in the afternoon and I'm not moving.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Because I'm continuously running a marathon.
Yeah.
Wow. I remember thinking that with my first baby. Like, I was like, because you get those little, the baby's this size at this week and this size at this week. And so I think my baby was the size of a lentil. And I was like, it takes so much energy to grow a lentil. Like, I just couldn't believe it. I had no idea. So I think that does help, like the partner's perspective of like, okay, because I think for us women, like, we get up, we take care of ourselves, we do the things, and to all of a sudden be like, I can't get up and get myself water. I need you to do that. It's kind of like, wait, what? Kind of like shocking. So I love that your OB said that to you.
Yeah.
And kind of put that work into perspective. Also the food aspect of it. Like, I remember my husband would come to my job every day at lunch, and he would like kind of like cringe, like, what do you want to eat for lunch? And then I would like cry because nothing sounded good except I needed to eat. And so he was trying to feed me, trying to be supportive, but it was so hard. So, feeding her what you can't, what she'll eat. And if that requires going to some place and buying it, then make that happen.
Yeah. Well, especially if you have like any sort of morning sickness, and women in their pregnancies vary in their morning sickness. And there's some that are bedridden because they're so sick, and others, like, I think I threw up within my 3 pregnancies, maybe like 3 times, what I mean?
Wow.
So like, but I still felt sick all day.
Yeah. Right.
So if you don't, even though you don't like see like the action of being sick, like
Mm-hmm.
you're still not feeling great usually.
Right.
So just being, like Liana said, just having that empathy and knowing like, yeah, she's crying because she feels terrible. So I'm going to get her whatever she wants.
Yeah. With my last pregnancy, we have this little Mexican restaurant here, like kind of little hole in the wall place, and they had quesadillas that I wanted. And so every day I got a quesadilla from Andrea's. And and John one day he was like, I could make you a quesadilla. And I cried.
Mhm.
Not the
I was
same.
I was like, why would you even suggest that? And he was like, okay, I'm on my way. I'm on my way. It was not the same exactly. So yeah, just you're right. Like that overwhelming feeling of exhaustion and feeling sick. I mean, yeah, and it totally varies, but I was I was the same way. I was sick with all of mine.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. What else? What other ideas do you guys have? Tips?
I remember going to a prenatal appointment with my husband. This was with our first baby. He came to every single one of my appointments.
Aww.
And I love that. But I remember sitting in the waiting room and there was a little elderly gentleman there visiting another doctor, obviously. And he was like, how can you take the day off to come to the doctor with your wife? And he's like, I just, this is what I'm here for. This is what I'm doing. And I just thought that was just like the perspective, like, how could you even plan on doing that? And like,
Mhm.
no, this is where I'm supposed to be, kind of a thing. So I think being able to just make yourself available, if you can, to be to those appointments, there's a lot of knowledge that midwife or OB is going to go over with you, and anything that, I know as like a pregnant mom, like you have mom brain and you just do, and like you can't remember all the things the doctor is saying to you as well. So having her person there to help you remember and like remind you of all those things is huge.
Yeah, totally.
And that is a great segue into the class.
Mhm.
Because you
Totally.
mentioned like the questions and the information, and it's like take the class
Yeah.
willingly,
Yes.
don't begrudgingly like, fine, I'll take the class, and be that dad who's a grump face. Don't be
Yes.
that dad.
Yeah, don't be
Yeah.
sad. We've had them. We've had them.
Yes, we have.
Yeah. I feel like most of the time, like, because a lot they're in class because she said, we're taking this class. And he's like, fine, I'll, sure, whatever, I'll go. And then they get there and they realize how important they are to the process and they're actually going to learn something. And and then they're like all in. And I think that is so huge. I taught a class one time that was it was like the 1 day class. And the dad literally brought his iPad. And for the first, I don't know, 30 minutes or so, he just sat there on his iPad, just playing a game or doing whatever. And once he realized that he was going to get something out of the class, that he was going to learn how to be part of the birth process, he never touched his iPad again. And it was just including him. It was understanding like you're not just going to sit on the couch while she's having the baby. You get to do stuff, you get to understand stuff, you get to be part of this. And it totally changed his whole outlook on the process and on the class. So yeah, class is huge. It's huge.
Yeah. I feel like there's like still a stigma from the past where dads weren't allowed to do anything. And
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of times men still have that picture in their mind, if it's like portrayed on TV or whatever. So they're thinking like, I really don't have a role in this, but times have changed.
Yeah.
And like, as your wife or your partner, like they want you there and they want you by their side throughout the whole thing. And like my father-in-law, he had 9 kids, and I think he was only like in the birth room for 2 of them.
Wow.
Yeah. So like it just, times have changed and men
Mm-hmm.
are so important for that support.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love like one of the activities that we do in class is like a labor rehearsal type thing. And and them realizing how important they are to her, that fake contraction wasn't as bad and didn't seem as long when he was there. He was there
Mhm.
giving her a massage or I don't know, whispering sweet nothings in her ear, or, just his presence, just being there changed the way that she experienced that fake contraction during class. So you can imagine how much more their presence and support is in the actual process. Like, while I'm actually doing this, I need you here, and I need you present, and I need you doing and being helpful. And you gain so much of that just during class.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I love in the classes, especially the comprehensive, when as an instructor, we take the time and we're like, okay, I need partners to face each other and tell each other, like, compliment each other and tell them how, like, what they're doing great right now through the pregnancy, either as the pregnant person or as the support person. Like, actually communicate, like, the way you value your partner, and validate them as well in what they are doing. And like, it's always a little awkward, like the first 30 seconds, and then they really start rolling into it. And I'm just like sitting there pretending I'm not listening,
Mhm.
but it's always so sweet. And I think that's really important. And I mean, every time I watch couples do it, I'm like, man, I really need to do this with my own husband. And I'm not pregnant or having any more babies, knock on wood. But I think it's really important just for couples in general to do that, because it's really connecting. And I love that part in class. It's just so sweet.
Yeah. Yeah. I love one of my favorite things about teaching classes is watching them grow together in this new space. And so they learn how much they already know about each other. And then they also, like, they're growing in this new way that they're going to do this really big, amazing, magical thing together. And so, like, watching that journey over the course of class, I think is just the most beautiful thing. I love it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, there's so much into it that goes into it. So yeah. What else?
I mean, along with going to prenatal appointments and going to a class, would be go to the interview with a doula.
Yeah.
And support her if she wants to have a doula.
Right.
And I mean, I know finances are hard for everybody right now, but if you can support her by getting a doula and doing the interview with her, because it's important for you to also connect with the doula and understand how she's going to support you, not just her, in the birthing space.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think along with that, like, coming prepared with questions of your own, like researching beforehand and discussing with your partner why this is important to them, and then not only helping her find questions, but coming with your own so that you are part of that process as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Do you guys, like, both of your doulas, so do y'all see a difference in, like, when the partner is kind of all in the interview, how that affects him being all in the birth space? Like do y'all kind of, like, can you kind of predict how things are going based on how they are in an interview? Do you know what I'm asking?
Yeah, sometimes, definitely. I mean, every once in a while you get one that surprises you, and we're like, sometimes when I get a very introverted partner, he's not very talkative at the interview, but he's listening, and he may not have any questions. But then at the birth, like, when it's time for action, they're really receptive to my suggestions and, like, how can I help and what can I do? But for the most part, yeah, it seems like if they're involved in the interview, they're going to be involved during labor.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I think sometimes, like Leanna's saying, like, they might be introverted in the interview, but, like, being willing to help. And on the flip side, like, sometimes dads are really talkative and they're all in, and then they get to the birth space and they're like, what do I do here? You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
It's
like
very
now
true.
they like clam up and like, okay, I have no idea what my space is. And it's like pretty intimidating for them. So I think it can go either way for sure.
I can see that. Do you
I
guys get
agree.
questions like concerns that you are replacing him or the partner? And like, how do you
Yeah.
address that?
Well, I always, I get it. I mean, probably easily 50% of the time, I get the like, how does my role as a doula, like, how does it work with the partner? And it's always like, well, I don't replace you. I'm an
Mhm.
addition. And it's not just supporting her, but it's supporting you. And I always give the same example because they grasp it even if they haven't taken a birth class. And that is, if she's laboring overnight, I'm going to tell you to go to sleep. I'm going to tell you to go take a nap because one of you needs to be alert and energized when this baby is born, and she doesn't get a choice. So you're going to go take a nap, and I will tell you if anything changes. I promise you will not miss anything important. um, but that seems to really, like, for in my experience, they seem to really understand that really well, because the question of what do I do, and like, am I supposed to stay awake the whole time as well? It's like,
Yeah.
no, that's why you get a doula, so you're not the one awake the whole time.
Mhm.
And it seems to really resonate with them when I make that example.
I like that.
Yeah. I like
And
that too.
I always tell them, like, I'm there to support your partner who is there to support you. And so we can kind of have that chain. And obviously, I'm, as a doula, going to do whatever needs to be done. But like I feel like our focus as a doula is for the pregnant mom, but she wants to be there with her partner. And so, like, being able to support them and telling them, like, hey, why don't we try this? And here is how you can help. Here is how you can be a part of this. I think that's really what, like, the main focus is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, she was actually my instructor trainer, but one of our doulas and trainers, she always said that a doula has intimate knowledge of birth, but your partner has intimate knowledge of you.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are things that they can do that we can't,
Yeah.
and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Whereas we can teach them things about labor and birth, but we can't get a crash course in how somebody handles pain and stress and anxiety. But they
Yeah.
already know, because in the vast majority of cases, they live with them and have lived with them for a while.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. I love that. I love that quote. I always talk about that in class. And I love, everything always goes back to class for me. But like I love that in class we're exploring more of that, like, yeah, the partner already knows her so well, so well. And so much of it's just like identifying it, like reminding them, like, I like it when you do this, or I want you to do this during labor. It's just like being intentional about pointing it out, because I think sometimes we think that like what we already know about them doesn't translate over to birth, but it totally does.
Yeah.
And and then we just add new things to it. They learn how to do a hip squeeze, and they learn how to read a relaxation script, or whatever. Like they add new skills to it, but so much of it is just what they already know so well about this person that they made a baby with. And
Mm-hmm.
and so yeah, I love that quote. I think it's just spot on in every way. Okay. Anything else about doulas or classes or any of that kind of stuff?
I mean, I feel like I could just go on and on,
I
but
know.
I think we've hit the
Yeah.
highlights.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Same. Um, so then I think, so there's like all the like the preparation for birth or whatever. And then I think there's also like the preparation for like actually bring a baby home, like there's always projects, there's always like a room to be painted or something that needs to be cleaned out, or, so like, like being part of that, helping her with that, even if, like all that nesting stuff did you guys get like that nesting thing? You didn't, Liana? Oh, I'm so sorry. I loved it.
I get lazy at
Oh,
the
do
end of
you?
pregnancy. Like when I said beach myself on the couch, I literally like I'm a continent beached on the couch, just and I'm out and I'm done. Even if I'm awake, I'm just like I have expended all of my energy for the
Okay.
day. If you want me to help with bedtime, I need to lay here for the next 2 hours.
Well, I mean, there's a lot that can happen from the couch. Move that dresser right there, over to the right, a little more, a little
That's
more.
a
Okay,
good
right there's
point.
perfect.
That's where you can be helpful partners.
I mean,
Right.
we do a lot of stuff earlier in pregnancy. But no, I never really got the nesting bug.
I totally did. My last baby, I mopped the floor like obsessively, obsessively. And I kept saying, this is like super interesting, I think. Um, I kept saying it's almost like my body knows or thinks that I'm gonna have this baby on the floor. And I always had my babies on the bed, all like first five on the bed, loved the bed, always how I planned to have babies. And I couldn't get on the bed with her. Like I was standing with my hands on the mattress and like I couldn't get my leg up. I couldn't get on the bed. And so my midwife said, "Well, why don't you sit on the stool?" And so I had her on the stool, which was near the floor that I mopped obsessively. So I don't know.
It
Things
was
can
meant
happen.
to be.
It was meant to be. Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, like helping with those projects, you know, things like, oh, I love this one. Okay. Sorry, I'm talking a lot. I was at a birth recently where every time she asked for something out of the bag, he was like, okay, where is it? And she would have to say, it's in the blue bag, in the pocket that's under the thing, by the whatchamacallit, over by the doodah. And so he's like, okay. And he'd go find it. But that happened like with every single thing. And so I was sitting here and I was like, that dude should have been the one to pack the bag. So my tip is pack the bag together, put all the stuff on the bed, and then he knows where everything is. Or better yet, just put everything on the bed, and then let him pack the bag himself because he's the partner's going to be the one that's digging through all the things. So they're the one that needs to know where the chapstick is and which gown she was planning on wearing postpartum. And, like, because they're the ones doing it, not her. So
I
anyway,
love that. That's such a good tip.
that's my tip. Yeah. What are y'all's tips? Do y'all have any more?
That is so good.
Thank you. I thought it was really brilliant.
I'm like thinking back on my births. I'm like, that would have been really helpful. Like,
Yeah.
you get to a point in labor, you are not talking and
No.
you still want stuff.
Yeah. 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 And this
But
woman was able to, like, obviously say what she wanted, but a lot of times it doesn't happen. I mean, sometimes I
Yeah.
remember thinking, like, I need lip balm, but I couldn't even get the words out of my mouth, let alone tell him where it is. So, yeah, I don't know.
I'm built a little different. I just would get up and go get it myself in between contractions.
Oh, yeah. No, not me. No, I couldn't
But
even get a gown on myself. So,
I labor a little differently than a lot of people. But no, it's a really good idea because I could imagine, and I've had clients too, where it's like she wants something and he wants to know. He's like, okay, I'll go get it. And so he's like emptying out the
yes.
bag, trying to find the things. But this is going to be really stereotypical. And I almost hate to say it.
Just say
But then
it.
she looked at me and I was like, I'll go find it. And I opened the bag and I reached in and I moved one thing and I found it.
And there it was.
And there it was. So, like, I see memes and jokes online all the time about how the mom just always knows where everything is. Like, did you look under this thing? And the children and the husband are like, oh, there it is. Like, how did you know that? And it's just like mom brain, the better kind of mom brain where you
the better kind.
know everything.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, it was really funny when that happened because he kind of looked at me. He was like, "How did you do
Magic. So
that?"
had he been the one to pack the bag,
Yes,
he would have known where it was.
he would have known where it was in
Yeah.
theory.
In theory. In theory. That's a good point. Well, I mean, it's better than not having any idea. At least you have some frame of reference for what's in the bag, what things are for, generally where they would kind of be, as opposed to, because a lot of times I think like we we're the ones who do lots of everythings. And, so we're the ones that are packing the bags for just vacations, just, like an overnight. So it makes sense that we're the one who's, and it's all our stuff, so generally it would make sense that we're the ones that pack our own things because that's what we do as grown-up women. But we're not the ones that are digging in the back, except for you, Liana. You're going to go get your own lip balm. I'm not going to go get my own lip balm.
I already had my lip balm on the table next to me.
See, that's so
I
smart.
was like, I'm going to need this.
That's so smart. Anyway, I think it gives them a general frame of reference, something to work with, as opposed to not having any idea what is in the bag or what we're taking or what she might want or what she might need. And I think that also goes back to these conversations, because if you're packing the bag together and she knows, I might need the lip balm, so make sure it's out. This is the gown that I want to wear after. This is what I'm wearing in the pool. This is, he has some kind of idea, as opposed to it all just being in there and having no idea what anything is for, because we didn't have the conversation or we didn't pack it together or whatever. Anyway, we can move on from this. This was long, but I think it was all good stuff.
But it's good. And I think it's important that you mentioned get everything out and put it on the bed.
Mm-hmm.
So he sees everything.
Right.
And so that you know what's going in the bag.
Right.
Because you don't want him just being like, yeah, I'll just get all the things, because he'll forget something.
Oh, yeah.
And,
Yeah. Be the one to gather it all together.
Mm-hmm.
Here's my pile of stuff. Here's my bag. Yeah. Make it work or do it together. Whatever. Do it however you want.
Really great idea.
Just,
anyway.
Yeah. Okay. What else?
I think just like you were talking about, like the conversation, like, are you feeling like this is all the stuff that you need? And, having as the partner, like making sure she feels ready for everything. I know, like every time I add a new member to our family, I don't know why. And I know not many people are like this, but I'm like, almost like it panicky. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, is this going to work? Like,
Yeah.
I'm adding another human being into our family. So like with my last baby, I went a week over, and I honestly think it's because my body was like, I am not ready for this. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
So just being able to like be there as the partner and talk through those emotions and those feelings, and making sure she feels not only like physically ready, but like emotionally ready for this new situation that's going to be taking place.
Yeah. I love that.
So good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move into the birth space. So I think this is where you ladies are going to like really have lots of ideas, being doulas and being in the birth space. So what are some ways that partners are important during the actual birth?
Well, be awake.
Key.
Don't play on your phone.
Yeah.
If you're on your phone, you better be taking pictures or getting the music that she wants, or like it better be directly related to what she's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's perfect. Yeah. Stay off your phone and stay awake.
I mean,
unless your doula tells you to go to sleep.
Yeah, unless your doula tells you otherwise. That's right.
Yes. But I mean, for the actual birth, like I'm thinking of like it's go time.
Active labor.
Active labor. I feel like the baseline is be awake and be focused on her.
Yeah.
Like bare
there's
minimum.
Nothing more you can do. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And if you have a doula, be receptive to what your doula is suggesting. And because again, we're going to go back to class. We talk about in class how she's going to reach the point where she can't answer anything anymore.
Mhm.
And you need to be kind of her voice. You need to be her voice and a little bit of her, like her caretaker almost. Even though you can't do much for her, there's so much you can do in
Yeah.
terms of knowing what she's going to need, because you know how she handles other kinds of pain. And so, making sure, oh yeah, she really loves having her hair stroked, and the shoulder massager, oh no, don't rub her neck, she doesn't like that kind of thing. Like, he's the one who's going to know that.
Right.
Mhm.
So even though we as doulas have our tips and tricks up our sleeve, sometimes they're going to be like, oh no, she's not going to like that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we won't know that unless you tell us.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
Right.
and I think this goes back, we haven't touched much on this yet, but like in class where you're working on your birth plan and you are discussing every detail of what you're wanting. And that is so important, to know exactly what she's wanting and what's on the birth plan, because there will be times where she is not able to answer for herself, and you, knowing that birth plan, will already know what she wants. And
Yes.
that is going to be a huge part of that birth process, is being like, no, she doesn't want to have an epidural, or she wants to do, skin to skin, or whatever it happens to be. Like, you're there to advocate for her and be there for her.
Mm-hmm. And it's really going to set the tone for once that baby is born. Like, for those first couple hours, how much he helped while she's pushing a baby out is, in my experience, it directly correlates to how they interact right after the baby's born. I mean, I've had guys that check out either intentionally or because it's, protective mechanism. They're stressed, and so they're not engaged. And it takes them a long time to re-engage
Mm.
with mom and baby after the baby's born. So if you can stay connected during pushing, and again, this is anecdotal, this is my
Oh
experience,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
like, it really seems to directly correlate to how connected you are in that very immediate post birth phase.
Yeah. I can see that. That makes
I like
total
that.
sense
That's
to
good
me.
insight. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Um, I always like talking about the environment, like that it's the partner's job to, and this goes back to knowing her intimately, right? Is looking around and saying, like, okay, this is a space that she can just relax, that she can have all this oxytocin flowing, that there's nobody chattering in the corner if that's going to annoy her. There's, the room is warm enough or cool enough, or she has her favorite blanket, or she has the robe that she, you know, that's her favorite thing to, feel comfortable in, or, whatever, like kind of always looking around and being like, okay, this is good, and this is good, and that's good, and that's good, and that needs to change. Okay, change that. And, like kind of making it that I always talk about in class, like if you were going to plan a romantic date night in, what would that space look like?
Oh,
And, so there
I
would
love
be
that.
low lights, there would be soft music, there would be candles, there would be, uh, there would be rose petals, that, like whatever it is, like, and like, because you know her so well and you know what she likes, what makes her feel loved and special and heard and seen, then you just like kind of you do that during labor. And if you're planning a hospital birth, that's a little more challenging, but it's still doable. And I think it goes,
Mhm.
doulas are really great in this because they know where the lights are and they know how to kind of help set that tone. Birth centers are easier because they generally kind of have that feel anyway, and then at home it's your own space, so you get to do whatever you want.
Mhm.
So so I always like, I like talking about that. Like, it's your job to set the tone of the room, set the environment. What does it look like? Um, and you know her so well, so this should be a you know, pretty easy job. It's just kind of always looking around, like reassessing.
mhm. That's really sweet. The idea of, a romantic night in I had this image of a dad going over to his bag and pulling out a plastic bag of rose petals and
Exactly. Right.
sprinkling them over the bed for her. And you know, if that's what makes her feel
Mhm.
loved, I
Mhm.
mean, I would never tell a dad not to do that
I
Oh,
would
no.
love that.
at all.
Yeah, that'd be
Like,
amazing.
I would melt into a little puddle inside. I'd be like,
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So,
Mhm.
that's a big one that I love talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else for birth tips, ideas?
Um, You'll probably learn again in class, hopefully you're taking a class and you learn
Yeah.
the importance of just keeping her moving. And if something's not working, to try something else.
Yeah.
And if you have a doula there, they will be obviously helping you direct that. But the movement is, especially like as you're getting through those long times where you're just at the beginning stages of labor, being able to move around and take her on a walk, whatever it needs to be. But yeah, just get her moving around.
Yeah. Yeah. And have a bendy straw. Do you guys talk about
Oh
this?
Bendy
yeah.
straws.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
Bendy
bendy
straw.
straws are fabulous. Yeah,
Yeah,
always be there ready to give her a drink with
exactly.
a
In
bendy straw.
any position. She doesn't have to lift her
Mm-hmm.
head or move. She could be upside down and take a drink, like
Yeah.
it's bendy
Oh, if she
straws.
has a contraction, just offer it to her. She might not want it, and that's fine, but at least it's being offered.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. And just, gosh, oh my gosh, something was in my head and it just disappeared.
I
Oh,
hate
it was
that.
a what not to do.
Oh, good.
And
Yeah, those are just as
Oh, that's
important.
I'm like,
good.
don't complain
Oh,
about any of your aches and pains.
yep. Yep.
Full stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
don't. You can mention it after the baby's born. You
Maybe.
can say, "Oh man,
Maybe. Yeah.
that pull out bed really messed with my back last night."
Yeah. And she'll be
Like,
like, man, that baby that came out of my body
uh-huh.
really did
So it's
bug
like,
me
She can
too.
always one up you
dare.
at this point.
Yes, absolutely. But it's like, don't you dare try and like,
Oh, yeah.
while you're massaging her, like, oh, my hands hurt so bad. Like, you want to push this baby out for me?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. That's a
yeah.
really good tip.
It is.
That's
And
a really
don't
good
ever
one.
talk about how hungry you are, because likely she hasn't eaten in 24 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, but also to go along with that, Megan, is eat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I've heard of some dads who are like, oh my gosh, I'm so hungry. And they're like, why haven't you eaten anything? Well, because she can't. And they think that it's being empathetic
Mhm.
and, you know, if she can't eat, I'm not going to eat. If she can't sleep, I'm not going to sleep. And I'm like, well, you're useless
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
don't take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You don't have any energy. Yeah, totally.
Mhm.
So I'm glad you said that, Megan, about being hungry, because I'm like, oh no, that's something that they should
Take
take
care
care
of.
of.
Yeah.
Don't flaunt it in front of your partner who may not be able to eat
Right.
or is nauseated and can't eat or whatever, but like
Right.
for sure take care of yourself.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't sit there like, oh, it's the best burger I've had ever. Don't do
You will
that.
get something thrown
Yeah,
at you.
Yeah. By several people. Um, yeah, good tips. Good tips. Oh, and I think the what not to do is just as important as the what to do. And so
Mhm.
in class, I have them like start a list of all the things you want. What are the things you like? What are the things you want said to you? What are the things you blah blah blah, all the things. And then sometime during class, some guy says something dumb and she looks at him and says, don't do that. Don't say that. And then I get to talk about, and now we start a list of what not to do, what not to say, how not to act. And that list is just as important as the other one that you're making too.
Hmm.
You know, and a lot of times they're kidding. They're like, of course I wouldn't actually do that. But a little bit in your head, you're like, okay, I'm glad we had this conversation though.
Gets them thinking.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Okay. And then postpartum. So Postpartum is, I think we don't plan enough for it. We plan for the
Mhm.
birth, but postpartum lasts way longer than pregnancy. It lasts way longer than birth. I mean, I'm 7 years postpartum, is what I like to say. So, if you want to send me a meal, I'll totally take it. But so what are some ways that partners can really support during postpartum, because this doesn't get talked about enough and because a lot of it gets overlooked, and the whole idea of like, well, healthy mom, healthy baby, then everything must be okay. Um, and there's a lot more that goes into postpartum than just I
Mhm.
got the baby out. So what are y'all's big tips for postpartum?
I mean, since we were just
Just
talking about food, feed her,
mhm.
get her
Yeah.
food. If she is, I mean, in the first couple weeks, it doesn't matter if she's nursing the baby or not, like offer to bring her food.
Yeah.
But even after that, even if baby's 8 months old and she's nursing, continue to offer food and make sure she has a water bottle.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Even with my last two I was a surrogate, I wasn't nursing, but I was pumping all the time.
Mm.
And I remember my husband would bring me stuff all the time, but one night he actually brought me a plate. He had made grilled steak, and he had cut it up into bite-sized pieces
Oh,
Oh,
and brought it
cute.
to me because my schedule had been so weird that day that I was pumping during dinner. Like I couldn't delay any further. I'd already gone past like
mhm.
the timing. And so, but he cut up my steak for me, guys.
That is so sweet.
That is sweet.
Keep him. I love
Yeah,
that.
I do too. And I think, I don't know, as a mom, if you have kids that are close together and you have a new baby, like you're not only trying to nurse a new baby or feed a new baby, but you also have other kids that you're trying to show that they're still loved and they are still wanted and they're,
Yeah.
I remember times where I'm like nursing and reading a book to like my 2-year old who's sitting on my lap or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like moms are multitasking all the time. And so if you can take one thing away, like be it food or water, making sure that there's like a changing station full of diapers and wipes and anything that extra, all the extra things that she may need.
Yeah. 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 We are always multitasking. I think that
Yeah.
we should grow an extra arm when you have a baby, because I
Mhm.
think that would be really helpful. But
That would be helpful. We
and
need one more thing
it
to
would be
grow.
retractable though. So you can, like, on date night, like you can pull it back in, and then it's not like, you have all these arms waving around everywhere. Anyway,
It's a great
um,
suggestion.
thanks. Thanks. I have lots of them.
Yeah.
Um, I think a big one is like listen to her. Like
Yes.
really listen to her. Listen to her. Like make that space that she can say whatever she's feeling. And about the birth, about the baby, about being up all night, about being frustrated, about being sad that, that she's not pregnant anymore, about being, the feelings of that shift from like during pregnancy, everything was about me, and now everything's about the baby. And
Mhm.
like that can be really hard, that like, oh hi, remember me,
Yeah.
I'm still here.
Yeah.
And
It's really hard.
it
Yeah.
is, it's really, really hard. And I think a lot of times we aren't given the space to be able to really talk about how we feel in a way that, it's like, I just needed to say that I'm okay. I just needed to voice that.
Mhm.
Or maybe she's not okay. Maybe she's really asking for help in, physically or emotionally or mentally, and to not, like, oh, well, like, why don't you go take a shower? Maybe that'll help. Like really
Mhm.
like you don't necessarily have to try to solve it. just
Yeah.
just listen to her. And if she's saying like, I do need more help, or I do need to talk about this or whatever, like giving her the space and the resources to do that, because we often don't. For me, like I remember feeling like I was so scared to talk about how I was feeling about things because I thought people would think I was a bad mom. And we so deeply and so badly just want to be good moms. And
Mhm.
and so voicing the things is important, and to listen to her and to give her that space to do that in a safe way. And then if we need to move on to find resources, then to do that and not just sweep it under the rug like, oh, you'll be fine. You just need some more sleep or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That
I
one's
think that
huge for
is
me.
huge. Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many emotions and so many hormones that are
Yeah.
changing, and like it's just a really emotional time anyway. So to be able to be listening enough to recognize, so something's changed, like we need to get extra resources and extra help. Like
Yeah.
usually a lot of people, if they're following, when I follow up with people, I'm like, ask the husband, like, how is she doing? Because they're going to have a better insight. And just like you're saying, like, oftentimes we don't want to show the world, like, yeah, we're really not doing well. We're having a hard time. But if, as a partner, if you're listening, then you can, you know, there's really no one else that's going to be able to help her if she's not willing to help herself than you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I really stress in the classes, not just for him to listen, but to encourage her to speak up.
Oh gosh,
Yeah.
yes. Thank you for saying that.
Like,
Yes.
don't be afraid to voice what you're feeling. Um, and then in tandem, partner, make sure that you are listening and listening carefully,
Yeah.
because you may miss something underlying that she's not saying clearly. Um, with her saying, I feel really overwhelmed, sit down and be like, what can I do to take some weight off?
Right.
Try and be proactive
Yeah.
in your listening, and like, what can I do to help?
Mm-hmm.
And if she doesn't know, if she can't verbalize, just start thinking about all the chores that she does and just start doing them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. I think you said that really, really well.
Yeah. Agreed.
Because I know I struggle, and this is a personality thing. I struggle to voice my feelings. And it's just how I was wired. But then I think societally, our culture in America is very much, don't talk about your feelings.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And the whole the bootstrap thing,
Yeah.
pull yourself up by the bootstraps. And women have been doing this for millennia, and what's your excuse? And it's like,
Right.
well, except we know better, and we know the mental toll that it
Hmm.
takes, and encouraging moms to talk about it. And even if you don't think you need help, you might, and you might not recognize it. And
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
it's just really important to vocalize that.
Yeah.
And I get that it's hard, because it's hard for me to do it when I'm not postpartum.
Right. Right. Well, and
um
I think too, like we're like you said, like in our society, we're told that we should be able to just do it by ourselves. Like there's
yeah,
like that superwoman
Mm-hmm.
thing, like you had the baby on Thursday, you're back to church on Sunday, and doing the dishes on Monday, because
yeah,
that's what women do. And that does such a disservice to women and babies and families. Um and then, we need that community, we need that tribe that we don't have. Like we don't have that, like, hardly ever. And so, yeah, so speaking up about what you need, I love that you added that to the
Mm-hmm.
listen, because there's nothing to listen to if she doesn't speak up.
right,
Yeah.
yeah. And I'm still talking about feelings, but also as a partner, as a male partner, make sure that you have some place to talk about your feelings,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because that can be hard. And I mean, if women are told not to talk about how they're feeling, for men, it's doubly so.
Yeah.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
you're supposed to be strong and take care of your family and hold everything together. And like,
Mhm.
there's so few resources for postpartum mood disorders for men,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
because it's never talked about. And
Right.
Mm-hmm.
while 99% of the time it's not nearly as serious as a woman's hormonal shifts and the postpartum mood disorders that she might experience, it doesn't make his feelings less valid and his experiences less valid. So it may not be a good idea to talk to her about your struggles, depending on your relationship, but have somebody,
Yeah.
another guy who's gone through it before, who's a friend. I mean, if you go to church and you're close with your pastor, or you have somebody at work who's really like really receptive to hearing your feelings, I think that's really important to take care of you, which in turn will allow you to take care of your partner.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that you brought that up because you're absolutely right. Like, it is very rarely discussed about postpartum mood disorders in men, like very rarely. And I don't think that many people even know that that's a thing.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, yeah, I'm glad you said that. I actually had a guy in my class one time came up, he emailed me after class 10, where we talk about, emotions and moods and all of that. And so this was his second baby or second wife. And with his first wife, he had like major mood disorders after postpartum. And it ended up ultimately breaking up their marriage because it was, that whole, like, I got to hold it together and, I've got to be strong and blah, 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 blah. And it really, I mean, it was horrible for them. And because it's not talked about and because it's not, something that's known. So yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up, Leona. I think that's huge and so, so important. And it reminds me of that, like putting the oxygen mask on you so that you can help everybody else, and so the way that you get to be strong for your family is by making sure that you're okay. And there's that, the trickle down effect. So I think that's huge.
And there is a website for men for postpartum. I'd have to look it up, but look it up and maybe toss it down on the description for this podcast.
Yeah, that's a great idea. That's a good idea.
One thing I did want to bring up, I know we're talking about this, but in addition to all that, I feel like there's often times where I would go to a postpartum like checkup, or even while I was at the hospital, and they were suggesting things to do as far as like for nursing or engorgement or discomfort or taking medicine or whatever it happened to be. And it was really helpful for my husband to be like, okay, well, now you have to take your ibuprofen, or here, why don't you try this for engorgement? Or I'm going to go to the store and get you some cabbage for, or whatever it happened to be. And it's really helpful to be able to have someone else. I've already said it, but to have someone else just being like, okay, well, this is something that we can try and this is something that we can do.
Right. Yeah, I love that. I think that's so huge. I think also, like thinking about having information, having knowledge, your goals for breastfeeding. If you're planning on breastfeeding, they say that the two biggest determining factors in breastfeeding success is support and education. And so, having somebody who knows how to help, who knows what to do for engorgement, or knows, like, I mean, even what's normal, even what to expect, like having somebody saying like, you're feeding that baby again is not helpful. Like, yes, I'm feeding the baby again. This is my new job. So, understanding what's normal, understanding what to expect, and then having that support, bringing her food that's already cut up, having her water bottle that's already filled, having the little station that's already there, like all of that stuff is so helpful to make it as smooth and easy as possible. So, supporting in that way, because feeding a baby it's your new full-time job.
Yeah. And while as a partner, you wouldn't be able to recognize if something were wrong, but if she's complaining about something like, my nipples really hurt, or man, I just like, my nipples are itchy, even like things like that, and being like, maybe you should go talk to an IBCLC, just having that knowledge and supporting her when she needs to go see an expert.
Right.
Because I mean, sometimes you got to pay out of pocket, and that's not cheap, but it's important.
Yeah,
And yeah, to know enough to support her in seeking out further help.
exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So part of the comprehensive class is you get the online breastfeeding class, and I always tell them you have to watch this together. Like, right, you're not going to be the one that's feeding the baby. I understand that, but you're the one who's supporting the person feeding the baby. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, when she's like, I don't know what to do, I don't know how to help, you'll be like, I do, because I watched this. I know how to help, or I know that it's time to get extra help, or like you said, like being able to recognize those things to say, okay, this isn't working here anymore. We need to call somebody. We need call in those reinforcements. And she's not having to do it all her own. Like it's so overwhelming and kind of scary sometimes to be like, I'm the only one calling the shots. I'm the one that's keeping this human alive. I'm the one who's taking care of myself. And so to know that there's somebody getting that ibuprofen for me and I don't have to think about that, or there's somebody who knows the number of the lactation consultant, I don't have to think about that, like is huge in that, like, I'm not doing this by myself. Because it's a big deal.
100%. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything else? Any other ideas?
I feel like we can talk about this forever.
I know. Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to think of high points.
Yeah.
High points.
Yeah. My last one is take the baby and let her sleep on her stomach.
Mm-hmm.
I always remember that first stomach nap. Oh
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's a really good one.
Well, and I remember with my first, when I had no idea this concept of asking for help. Like, I just thought, no big deal. Like, sure, I got 8 hours of sleep last night, even though it was broken up in 2-hour chunks.
Right. Right.
I didn't understand how much that was going to affect me. And I don't even remember, maybe it was day 5 or something. Baby's like 5 days old, and I was delirious with exhaustion. And I was just like, I need to take a nap. I just fed him. I need to go take a nap. And my husband was like, okay, I got it. Like, I've got him. And even when the baby started fussing, like an hour and a half later, he didn't wake me up.
Good.
He didn't wake me up until it was like bad.
Yeah.
Because he was using his finger because we weren't using a pacifier. And so my little baby Luke, he was sucking on daddy's ring finger, and just like, he was doing skin to skin. He was doing all the things to try to keep him consoled until I got the rest I needed. And I ended up sleeping for almost 3 hours.
Oh, wow.
Wow. That's amazing.
Which had been the longest, like, stretch of sleep I'd had since, 5 days prior, 6 days prior. And I remember coming out, and he was like, he's tried to latch on a couple times. I think he needs to eat. And that was like all he said.
Awesome. It's awesome.
That's
yeah.
funny.
I always tell guys, like, don't stand outside the bathroom door while she's trying to, like, have a moment to herself with the crying baby.
Yeah.
That's not helpful.
Not
Take
helpful.
the baby far away. Take the baby outside. Like, everybody will survive. Give her what she needs.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
As much as we talk about feeding baby on demand and not putting them on a schedule, that doesn't mean that the baby's not going to starve if they are delayed a feed.
Right.
Because
especially
you need to take care of you.
Exactly. Yeah. When it means some mental health time, like, you're going to go back to that baby happier, clearer, more content, ready to do it all again, because you got a nap, or you got a really good long shower, or you had a good cry, or you sat in your favorite spot in your yard for, like all of that stuff. You got some sunshine, whatever it is, like all of that stuff. It's putting that oxygen mask on yourself again, so that you can like, okay, take care of your baby.
And we can't do that unless we know the baby's being taken care of.
Exactly.
Right.
Right.
Our brain will not let us unless we know our baby's being taken care of.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
I have one more point that I just want to bring up real quick
Good.
is
Yeah.
I feel like it's getting better, but postpartum time for dads from work it can be
Mm,
sometimes not there. My
right.
husband for my last baby, we had a baby on Saturday and he went back to work on Monday. Like
Oh my gosh.
he had no time, and it's really hard to not have that extra support and that extra person. And there are resources and extra people if your partner can't be there for you. If you need to have a mother-in-law or your mom or a postpartum doula or
Mhm.
a friend to come in and help you during that time if your partner is not able to because of work circumstances. So I just
Yeah.
want to put that in there real quick, that like not always are we going to have the blessing of being able to have our partner with us postpartum.
Yeah.
Yep. My,
We could do a whole podcast on that.
I
Yes,
know.
I know.
Paternity leave and maternity leave, but paternity leave, because we're talking about dads.
Yeah.
No, I totally understand. My husband's a teacher, and 4 out of the 5 babies were born during the school year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, we just kind of made it work. And the way we ended up doing it was he took like long weekends so that he was only, yeah, it was just less time that he was away at
Mhm.
work.
Yeah.
But yeah, those first few days without them is really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then so, since we're talking about the dad of partner, like I can't imagine
Right.
having to leave
Mm-hmm.
my wife that just did this big thing and this baby that I am so deeply in love with. And I just want to be there and care for them and hold the baby and feed her and do the laundry and do all the things that they told me to do in class. And instead I have to go work,
Mm-hmm.
to provide, so that's great, but
Yeah.
like that it has to be really hard on them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and I remembered my husband, he was home right after school was out. He didn't stay for meetings, and the admin was always really great. Like, go,
Yeah.
go. Like
That's
he
good.
could have taken more time, but he wanted to like he didn't want to use up all of his sick days and personal days in case he needed them, in case I got sick at some
Right.
point and he needed to be home or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, like it's that fine line, because
Yeah.
yeah, our country just doesn't prioritize paternity leave. And
Mm-hmm.
so his bosses were really understanding when he's like, I'm blitzing out at the same time as the kids. Or I think one time he had a planning period, his last period of the day,
Hmm.
and they were like, go
Yeah.
home.
Yeah.
And so I mean, they were as supportive as they could have been without,
Right.
Giving him the time off. Yeah.
Right. Right. As supportive as you can be in a system that doesn't support families.
Yeah.
yes, that is
Exactly.
very well worded.
That's a great, yes, agreed.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we absolutely could keep talking about this forever and ever. But I feel like that was a lot. And I feel like that was really good. You ladies had wonderful, amazing things to say. So,
Ew.
all right. Okay. Well, we will see you guys back here next week. Be sure and subscribe and leave a review and all those sorts of things. So, all right. Bye, everybody.